Long shadows appeared by the late afternoon sun over Whitmore's rolling fields. Canine Estate is a huge, sparkling property nestled in the peaceful hills. Some rows of strong structures in northern Texas. Each fence have kennels surrounding it, keeping bred, trained, and well-cared-for dogs with military accuracy. But there was the enclosure that is tucked away the most from the others that no one was willing to confront. Max lived in it casually, an icy fire in the German Shepherd's eyes and a reputation that is less favorable than the. Max's muzzle scars prevented him from barking. Growling, he attacked rather than chased. 3 trainers attempted to get back on their feet. He left with 2 people in the last 6 months. One left has been stitched up with a broken arm. Mr. Whitmore, the tech tycoon with billions of dollars, became reclusive and wouldn't put Max down or reveal him to someone who doesn't fully comprehend. Why? Until someone spotted a worn-out, perhaps a boy's photo on his office shelf. 8 people with a dog sat on a doorway. The caption said that it looked just like Max. Red Duke and I. Whitmore had consistently been a proud. It's difficult to approach a faraway man. Red, but he made dogs softer, so they were. His sole connection to a human being. Standing at the fence because of the past. With a chilly wind and his arms folded. He combed his silver hair and made the announcement. He gave $1 million to whoever is able to make Max likable. Once more, not merely submissive, kind, and trustworthy. Nobody chuckled, and nobody gave it any attention. It was a prank, as they were aware that it wasn't. Regarding the funds, it was about conserving. Whitmore was unable to let go of the final link to the one love he ever knew where near the city's center. Nobody paid attention to the quiet or the tiny. Maya floated like vapor, invisible and unwelcome. Unclaimed at the age of 12, she had already mastered the art of vanishing in. How to sleep on concrete without crowds. How to ask someone who is shivering too loudly. Without speaking, she described her days as a red light patchwork and rushed. Slowly, she worked around curves where the stole traffic, cleaning windshields with more holes in the rag than the candy offering cloth. To people who hardly ever stopped her. Over time, the voice had become quieter, not because shyness but from infrequently using the world. She stopped talking to it after listening. She couldn't recall her parents' names. Actually just hazy bits and pieces of a lullaby, a cozy jacket with a cinnamon scent. Yet, those recollections had been exchanged for empty stomachs and chilly nights. One afternoon, while squatting close to a car park, she heard 2 delivery drivers on the property. A weird old man talking next to their truck. $1 million is being offered by a billionaire. The other sneered, now for a dog. Not any dog can lead a devil to tears. Maya perked her ears up a large man's arm. She didn't move or blink while she was up. Anyone who can make it, someone who listened said. The money is later given to a buddy once more. That evening, she was cuddled up under the awning corrosion behind a closed gas. Her sweatshirt was wet at the station, and her mind was off, but her fingers were numb. Whether the dog was hungry or cold, she didn't give a damn about the money. Even understand the feeling of $1 million. However, there's something concerning that dog. Regarding the notion that no one may go there and hit a chord so deep that resonated in her ribcage. Perhaps it requires somebody like me might have woken up before the sun. The city was still enveloped in half slumber. Her back ached in the fog and faraway sounds from the frigid sidewalk, yet she sat upright, perhaps with a purpose she hadn't sensed in. She never had a GPS or address, just a Whitmore Canine is the name she heard while passing estate, and the impression that it was located far beyond the city limits, beyond the highways, and, despite the noise, she remained tied. She flung her plastic water in her damaged sneakers, bottle over her shoulder, and began. The streets were silent as she walked, went through them, slicing through alleys across railroad tracks and outside. She halted as she approached the countryside, occasionally, to request directions. Some responded with a shrug and a few giggles. Others continued with ambiguous motions. It's way out there, youngster, past the fields. She didn't, but you're wasting your time. By lunchtime, the concrete broke away. Path to dry grass and dirt roads. Her lips split and her legs burned when she times almost stepped on a snake. She thought about giving up, but something inside, the aspect of her that continued to hope in spite of everything, continued to advance as the sun sank below the horizon. She arrived at the estate's first sign, a tall wooden gate with iron bars on either side, plus 2 security cameras that don't make noise. Behind it, there are buildings and undulating hills, too far away to see her stomach clearly. Her legs shook as she rumbled, but she approached with her hand resting on the metal barrier while she muttered, "I created it." She was unsure of what to say. She had walked, but who would listen? Each step by itself, which meant, when Maya initially knocked, something. No one arrived at the gate, so she waited, clutching. The eyes of the cold iron bars are looking for motion outside the trees following what it seemed like an hour before God arrived. Looked broad-shouldered and towering, with a mirrored sunglasses and a pressed uniform. It mirrored her face smeared in mud. Returning the favor. "What do you want, child?" She spoke steadily and almost quietly. "I've heard of Max, a dog I'd like to test." You tried with a snort instead of a laugh. "Max, you will be eaten for breakfast by that dog." He didn't ask her before opening the gate. Names simply left, but Maya stayed. Depart that evening. She slept snuggled up next to. Her jacket zipped up to her at the gate. She curled her arms about her knees. In the distance, coyotes howled, and she remained motionless despite the wind biting her flesh. She returned the following morning. While waiting, the same guard emerged, saying, "Still, go home, please." "I don't have one," she said. Claimed that on the 3rd day, rumors had began among the employees. The girl at the gate, the non-gator. A groundskeeper should be brought in. Without saying a word, she left her half of a sandwich. She ate every bite and nodded in gratitude, that if she blinked, it may vanish. As the sun rose on the 4th morning, she was standing over the hills in the worn shoes with knotted hair in the same spot. Through the second guard's unflinching eyes, a quieter older person stood observing her for a before he spoke into his radio. "Sir, a child has been returning here. She expresses a desire to meet Max every day." Static pause, followed by a voice on the other. "Maya didn't know that I would be there in 10 minutes. Who at last consented to see her, although she didn't squirm, didn't flee, and smile. She simply waited in the same manner as had the crunch of polished boots all the time. The first sound Mia heard was on gravel. She didn't need to time, so she didn't. The man approaching her was carrying the sort of quiet that forced individuals to straighten up, unsure of why his name didn't. Must be said, Mr. Whitmore. The billionaire who is responsible for the one who hadn't made $1 million challenge, addressed the media for more than 10 years, who had appeared on every magazine cover in the past, now lived concealed by dogs and fences. In spite of the heat, he wore a dark overcoat, and a profound scowl was engraved between his. His posture was solid, and his eyebrows were silver, proudly acting as though he didn't walk as much as control the earth underneath him. He paused a short distance away from Maya. The guard took a step back and observed her from her tangled hair and her ripped sneakers. Unreadable, piercing eyes that didn't blink. "Maya, it's you who has been waiting." Nodded, wondering why her response was so muted. "But I immediately learned that no one could. Maybe I should try to get in touch with Max." Whitmore's face remained unchanged, however. Behind his eyes, something flickered. Astonishment or recollection that is not secure. "I know," he answered, "and you think you can." She said, "I don't think I can help him." "Can help him? I'm just thinking that perhaps he doesn't require repair. Perhaps he just requires someone to remain." The quiet between them, like a taut wire, then gradually, Mr. Whitmore took off his shades, eyes that have witnessed too much, and he glanced past, forgetting too little, her in the direction of the kennel in the distance, and then returned to her here at. "You'll only have one chance, Maya, at morning." ignored him, and simply nodded placidly, as if she had been anticipating it. For the first time in her life, the sun hadn't completely risen as soon as Maya entered the yard. The grass beneath her feet remained wet, and there was a coolness in the morning air that bit her fingers through her flimsy hoodie. Shivered, but not because it was cold today. It was about having courage to cross the field. Workers were getting ready for one of. They approached the distant corner of the space where a substantial reinforced post that was rooted in the ground and connected. There was a long, sturdy tether coiled to it, as if a snake. Max had been prohibited from travel freely for months without any consequences. What he had done to the last trainer, Mr. Whitmore, stood with his arms folded to the side. His face was tightly gripped in his jaw. Didn't reveal anything, but his presence did. He needed to see this because it was louder than words. For himself, as soon as Max showed up, the air became electrified, as though each on that field, the heartbeat had sunk to. His coat shone black and he growled, gray taut over strong, slender muscles. He had keen teeth and pricked ears. The handle clipped the somewhat bearded, fastening to his bulky collar and stepping back right away, eyes tired. Max growled, guttural and profound, tugging against the chain with a rattling force that ground. Amaya stood without flinching, just past the tether's farthest length, sufficient to keep secure but near enough to. She didn't wave or say anything, didn't argue. She just knelt down. Tools, no instructions, no tricks, just stillness. Max gave a piercing, menacing bark, then lunged against the cord after the blast. Dust was held by muscles straining the chain. He paced while kicking up around his paws, circles pulling, testing, observing, and Maya waited calmly and steadily. After 10 minutes, or 15 at most, ceased barking, but his body remained, squirmed with anxiety as he stood at his chain breathing's furthest reach, intensely focused on the girl who, refusing to feel scared, Maya stayed, hands gently laying on her while kneeling. Knees, she didn't look at Max. Straight ahead, she silently gazed past him as, allowing him room to see her without. She didn't move because she felt challenged. Didn't even blink, she simply. The handlers remained at the edge of the yard, stirred uneasily, and someone murmured. Another shook and said, "We should pull her out." Observing Mr. Whitmore with his arms remained crossed, but the jaw was now slightly. Max then unclenched and did something that made everyone shiver, and he remained seated. Compliance not due to lack of instruction, but because he appeared for the first time. His ears twitched forward in curiosity. Tail remained low and flicked faintly. Maya saw, but instead of responding, she just reached into her very slowly hoodie pocket and extracted a little. She opened the partially consumed granola bar cautiously and set it before her. Afterward, she pulled her hand out of Max's eyes, flicked to her, then to the meal. Another minute went by before returning to the food. He got back up and took a cautious advance with the chain clinking softly. Then one more, until he came within inches of the tether's edge. For Maya and the granola bar, he didn't growl or snarl. He simply stood there, his face inches away, breathing heavily. Maya lowered her eyes from hers, never establishing eye contact and whispering just loud enough to be heard only by Max. "It's all right. I'm not here to force you to. I just want to be here, no matter what." Max experienced a thread-like shift, freed from a protracted knot of terror. The sweetness of her voice and its lack of demand, it caused a commotion, buried a warmth that may have been forgotten. It seemed to be the reverberation of a love he'd once recognized, then lost, and all of a sudden he did not think he needed to defend himself. Leaning down, he grabbed the granola bar and sat next to her without exerting any force. No instructions, no fear, just silence. Long after, trust quiet lingered in the air. Max sat next to her, and nobody else moved. Even the birds appeared to restrain their tongues. Mr. Whitmore stepped forward, taking their breath. His shoes crunched across gravel gently. The guards looked at each other, uncertain if they ought to adhere to the handlers lowered. Something unsaid on their radios had changed and came to a halt a little distance from his, eyes fixed on the improbable couple seated, a lone female in the morning light. And, "You did it," said the dog, who no one could approach. At last, he answered in a quiet but distinct voice, "No. You won because no one else has ever come close." Maya looked in his direction. "But you have $1,000,000 that didn't rise." She gazed down at Max's as promised. Body was now leaning against her side. She touched her quiet, steady breathing, his back once before standing and gently dusting dirt from her knees. "I'd rather not have the money," she said, and silence fell over the yard. Whitmore said, raising an eyebrow, "Nothing is waiting, Maya. I would like a room. Proceeded to a secure bed. I won't be expelled in the midst of the I want school and 2 meals a day at night." Her voice remained steady as she left for school. However, something in her gaze simply, a brief moment of sensitivity that is swiftly buried under the same unwavering silence that had. Max Whitmore, calmed, gazed at her as though attempting to comprehend something distantly greater than her statement. "That's all?" he inquired, and she nodded, which was all. He glanced at Max, whose eyes were now tracked every motion he made, not with terror, but with silent awareness, and then returned. He inhaled slowly and spoke to Maya. "You'll dwell in the main house this time, softer. We have a spare room in the house where you can eat with me, and we'll enroll you initially tomorrow." Maya didn't cry or cry out loud, but she relaxed her shoulders for the first time in years. She nodded slightly. Whitmore walked forward and said, "Thank you," putting her shoulder with a hand. "That unexpected kindness. You're not sure," he said, "what you've done here, not only for him and me." That evening, for the first time, Maya slept in a proper bed. The mattress was soft at one point in her life. The linens had a lavender scent, and the cushion held her head as if it were. Her room was waiting for her the entire time. Basic desk, dresser, and small window. Using a lamp, although it seemed to her that Max was curled up outside the door of the palace, up his ease, quivering with each noise as protecting her from a society that had. He never showed kindness and didn't bark, growl. He simply waited quietly and faithfully, as the young woman who had instilled trust in him. Once more in the space across the hall, Mr. Whitmore was sitting by himself on the edge of the picture of Duke and me from 1965 in his. He gazed at it for a long time. This time, not with sorrow, but with. He whispered something that was almost peaceful too. She didn't fix him in the picture, reminded him that he was unbreakable. The following morning, Maya strolled next to Mr. as though she will always fit in there. Calm and bare feet, Max following, as if a shadow had at last discovered its son. Nobody questioned or doubted it. Later that week, she was registered for. Whitmore's school routine had changed. Coffee in the morning, reading the paper, and putting Maya's tiny lunch bag in. Max would wait by the gate with its name on it, for her to come back every afternoon, going around town like clockwork. Inquired about the girl at the estate, the young woman who altered the improbable dog, and upon hearing the most simply grinned and remarked, "Some things that money cannot purchase." Since in the end, the $1,000,000 wasn't the main concern. It was about being perceived as secure, believed in, even if only once, and occasionally. That's all it takes to make a difference.